Hi, today I want to talk about changing tubes in this Egnater Tweaker 15 amplifier. I've had this for a few years and I haven't changed the tubes. I bought it used, so I'm assuming these tubes are the original tubes and they're probably pretty old. So I haven't found too much on the internet as far as changing tubes out of just one of these specifically. It's real easy, I'm sure. We're going to actually go through it and see how easy it is. But I love this amp. It's been great, and I think it's just time to at least try some new tubes and see if that, at least for general maintenance, routine maintenance, they need to change the tubes every now and then anyway. One comment about these amps, they're apparently a cathode tube. I don't know that much about them, but apparently with this type of amplifier, according to the Egnater site, you don't have to rebias the power tube. So that's one reason I'm just going to go ahead and do it myself, because it sounds pretty easy. And apparently these are designed to take some other tubes as well, like an EL84 or something like that. You might need an adapter or something. I'm not that attuned to how that would work, but I love the sound of this, so I really don't want to change it. So it's got some Ruby 6V6s in here. It's got a sub number of like G something A. We'll look at that a little bit later, but the tubes I found are not the exact same. They're the Ruby 6V6 tubes and they're the G whatever, but they're B instead is what I found. So when those come in tomorrow, we'll finish up this video. But as far as changing tubes, it's got 3 12AX7s and 2 of the power tubes. So that's real straightforward. So let's go ahead and we're going to turn this around. And basically it's super easy to open up. We've got 4 screws here. I'm going to go ahead and take the screws out of this back plate, and I'm going to go ahead and take off, there's 6 screws on this top plate, just because I think it'll be easier, it's better to have more access than less, and it's going to be easy to get into. So I'm going to recommend we take all those 2 panels off. I might even remove the chassis and go ahead and spray the pots while I've got all this out anyway. I noticed I opened this up last night just to see what was in there, so I knew what tubes to order, and I closed it back up because I didn't know when I was going to get back to it. But it's pretty dusty in there, so I thought I'll just clean it out and make it like brand new again. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll take these screws out and take the panels off, and then we'll look at that real quick. And then when I get the tubes in, we'll kind of finish this up, and we'll see and sound and hear what it sounds like. Okay? Okay, so I've removed the chassis from the cabinet, and I just want to mention that it has 4 screws in the bottom that need to be taken out in order to remove the chassis. When you're doing these screws, just if you do it like the way I'm doing it sideways, take the bottom ones out first, and as you do the top ones, hold the chassis in place as you're undoing the top screw. It's kind of a tight fit in there, and it probably won't fall over, but just be careful when you're doing that. It's not rocket science, but just, try to be careful of your amplifier, because you just don't want to crack any tubes or anything while you're working on it. So here's the chassis. It's kind of dirty, as you can see, or can't see. And here's the front. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take these tubes out, and tomorrow when I get the new tubes in, we'll just replace them and call it a day. So what we'll do now is we're going to take out, I'm just going to start with the preamp tubes. These are 12AX7s. This just twirls around till it's keyed, so it's got these little nibs on this protective thing here, and it just fits into the chassis, and just a simple twist and they come out. So there's a spring in there, so it's kind of a spring fit, but it's just to help hold the tubes in place. When I was looking at these tubes before, I noticed this one is labeled Egnater, and I thought, oh, that's a different kind of tube. But then I saw, oh, it's tungsol, which matches these other 2. So they're all 12AX7s. But what this tells me, these are all the original tubes. So it probably is just wise to go ahead and change them out anyway. So you just want to be somewhat gentle when you're pulling tubes out. Probably more gentle when you're putting them in. You certainly don't want to crack them and cut your fingers up. So these feel much more intense. So I noticed somebody had made a comment about, what part of, when you look at a tube or a valve, he was from England, when you look at this is like, what do you pull on to get it out of there? And I could see the confusion there, because you're looking at these tubes and they're all glass, and you look at something like this and you see this plastic base, you might be tempted to think that's actually part of the socket, but actually that's the bottom of the tube. So just keep that in mind. You probably want to pull on the plastic part, and again, just be careful. So this is a Ruby tube, and that's what I've actually ordered. This is 6V6 GT STR, which is actually a little different than what it said in the manual. They were GTAs or something like that. I was thinking of Grand Theft Auto when I saw it, so I don't know if that's the exact initials or not. But so the ones I ordered are just a little bit different on these last digits here. But it is I did order a 6v6 GT, so I'm not sure what the difference on these are. The set I got it from Musician's Friend. I don't think that's going to stand up. The set I got from Musician's Friend is a matched set. And I don't know that much about tube manufacturing, but when I got on, started looking at the different people making these comparisons between tubes and stuff, and they're like, this tube's so much different than that tube. And, you know, within the 6v6 family, there was really no difference. I mean, you could really dig and try to find a little bit of difference, but you don't know if that was, you know, your air conditioner was on or something was different at their studio when they were recording or something. That the differences are so subtle that your audience would never, your listeners would never pick up that difference. Even other guitarists wouldn't realize you had switched tubes. I can't imagine that there's any significant difference between these things. So anyway, so these seem to be, Ruby got a pretty good reviews as far as their tubes are. Actually, no one got a bad review, so which leads me to think that these designs are, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. I think these 12AX7s, I don't know when they were first designed, but my gosh, you know, they figured out how to produce these things, you know, 50, 60 years ago. So anything you get, the design is not going to be that much different. So you can't be that much different in materials and things. Maybe, if anything, the production is probably more standardized, and you can probably expect better quality out of these tubes than you can the originals. So just keep that in mind. I mean, these, even when you look at them, it's just, they're very straightforward. You know, as long as they have a vacuum, I guess, and the right materials and the right design. I'm sure there's some subtle differences that the tube manufacturers do to make things maybe more durable or something, but that's kind of, anyway, so that's these tubes. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm just gonna brush all this off. Let's flip it over. I haven't flipped it over yet to see the bottom here. But my pots are back here. I'll have to see. Oh, it looks like I can spray into these. There's some little ports on there. I'll spray those with some contact cleaner and run these knobs back and forth just to make sure they're not scratchy at all or anything, but just to be on the safe side. So while I'm in here, I'm just looking at some things. There's a couple of fuses in here. Really pretty straightforward. It's I don't think it's hand wired or anything like that, but the board looks like really accessible. The components are rather big. There's no micro components in here. I mean, some are kind of small, but they're nothing that's those super 1/16 of an inch long type resistors and stuff. So if you were to get in here and have to fix something, I think I would feel comfortable doing that. Well, next time when I get my tubes in, so hopefully tomorrow night I can finish this up and show you what I did, which is basically change the tubes, clean the pots, and put it back together. Okay, it's the next day and my tubes have come in. Things are looking pretty good there. I went ahead and cleaned up the chassis quite a bit. It was just really dusty, so I got the dust off. Blew out with one of those spray duster things. I sprayed out all the pots with a contact cleaner and all the switches as well. So anyway, so we got our tubes. We got the 12AX7s, and I got a set of matched 6v6 tubes. And these actually are, I was a little concerned when I was talking about this before, that these tubes had different numbers. And here's the old one, and they actually have the same 6v6 GTSTR on them, so they're the same design, I guess. So anyway, so we've got a matched set of those, and plus our 3 new 12AX7s. So let's go ahead and turn this around, and we'll just start putting tubes in. It's a pretty simple operation. And the tube, just line up the pins. Just use common sense and be careful. Make sure the pins are all lined up. Give it a little push, and it looks good. Okay. That looks good. All right, so these all look nice and shiny and new. I'm going to go ahead and put these covers on. And that's simple. And we'll put this on. There. Okay. So I'm pushing down. I'm actually going to push these metal things down, these retaining clips down as I'm pushing this. There we go. So I'm kind of pushing down on the plastic base more than I am touching the glass. All right, that bad boy's in there now. And we're going to do the same with this guy. Just line up the key slot. It's kind of an interesting design. They just really clamp that in there. Okay, what I'm going to do next is we're going to put it back in the case. I'm sorry, in the cabinet, and then we'll turn it on. We'll hook up a speaker and turn it on, and we'll see. It should sound the same, I guess. Okay, we'll come back in just a second here when we get all that back together. Okay, we've got it hooked up. Power's on. Light came on inside. The tubes are glowing. I've got it hooked up to my VHT. It's a 112 cabinet with a chrome back VHT speaker in there, 16 ohms, and that's what the setting is on this, and everything looked good so far. This is my settings I normally use. I saw some suggestions that these are kind of extreme looking settings, but they're good for a blackface sound, so that's kind of my choice on that. So that's pretty much a clean. Let me turn it down a little bit. And I'm just using my lapel mic. I'm not going to hook up the... Clean it up quite a bit too. Very good. Let's give it some gain. We'll put it on hot. I'll just drive this like that just to... Try the bridge pickup. Okay, so let's do that on clean with the... Okay, well that's it. Sounds good. It's actually, it does sound a little cleaner than it did before. Little less noise in the system, so maybe those tubes were starting to go. Looks good. So that was a simple fix. I think the whole tubes cost me about, on Musician's Friend, I'll leave a link to those tubes, but I got the match set was about $30. That included 2 tubes, and I think the 12AX7s were about $17 or so each. So I think the total order was about $94. So I thought that was reasonable, and actually that was a lot cheaper than Amazon. So that was an interesting surprise. So even though I love Amazon, it's good always to shop around these other stores and vendors just to see what prices they've got. So good for you, Musician's Friend. I haven't actually shopped there in a while. Okay, well, this is the Egnater. It's the Tweaker 15 with brand new tubes.